Recording in progress.
All right, welcome everyone. It's now 6:31 p.m. I'd like to call to order the Fenton Township Board meeting on this 15th day of October, 2024. I would ask everyone to please stand for the opening prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Trustee Gopal, will you lead us?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Lord, we're meeting here tonight to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities, so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. We thank you for being the source of our guidance tonight. Amen.
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 Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As always, thanks, Mark. Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Tucker.
Present.
Gopal.
Here.
Kessler.
Here.
Krug is present. Kotrick.
Present.
Reed.
Here.
Lorraine.
Present.
You have a full board.
All right, thanks, Bob. I'd like to note for the record that Township Attorney Jack Belzer, our Operations Manager Tom Broker, our Zoning Administrator Mike Deem, our Fire Chief Ryan Voltz, and our Assessor Julia Wilson are also present this evening. Additionally, the following Township officials are present via Zoom, our Township Engineers Alan and Melissa Lawrence. Tom, will you detail the procedures for those attending tonight's virtual meeting?
Yes, to the members of the public attending tonight's meeting in person or via Zoom, please be advised the meeting is being recorded to be shown on Public Access TV, Spectrum Channel 191. Recorded meetings are also posted on the Fenton Area Community Television YouTube channel. For those attending via Zoom, we ask that you keep your microphone muted until we reach portions of the meeting where public comment is allowed. For tonight's meeting, there are no public hearings, therefore all public comment will be taken near the end of the meeting. Meeting materials are available for download at the Township's website at fentontownship.org.
Thanks, Tom. All right, moving on to the first business order is the approval of the agenda. Are there any requests to amend tonight's agenda? Hearing none, a motion is in order to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved. Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Tucker.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
I vote yes. Kotrick.
Yes.
Kessler.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Gopal.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, agenda stands approved as presented. Moving on to the next business order is the meeting minutes. Included in the packet are the meeting minutes from the October 1st special meeting and the October 1st regular meeting. Are there any corrections or requested revisions to these meeting minutes? Hearing none, the meeting minutes stand approved as presented. Moving on to expenditures. Are there any questions from the board regarding any of the invoices?
Hang on a minute, I had something, I gotta find it now. It was Genesee County. There was a charge for water and sewer, and it was the one right after that. And I was confused by it, probably shouldn't have been. For the treatment. Is that under Genesee County?
The $251,000,
Yeah,
that's our monthly treatment charge for
yeah. The one right under that is one that I was wanting to ask about, the 94,734.
Oh, okay, drains at large, okay. Each year, the County Drain Commissioner establishes several, or they're already created, they make several drain assessments throughout the township. And property owners are assessed a proportional share. They're generally kind of small. And the township is assessed a portion at large. And it normally we're 10 to 20,000 a year. This one is higher because we had the Orchard Park drain, inter-county drain that was approved last year. And we got a big chunk of that. We're going to be paying $50,000, $60,000 a year for 20 years on that one.
Well, I've learned a couple of things. I'm familiar with the process for drain improvement assessments, but I thought that was totally paid by the folks in the district.
No, the township, gets a share at large.
I've never noticed it until this year.
This is about 4 times what we usually pay.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions or from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order to approve the expenditures totaling $797,952.85 for payment.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Tucker.
Yes.
Kessler.
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
I vote yes. Reed,
Yes.
Gopel,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, thanks. The expenditures stand approved as presented. As Tom said, there's no public hearings tonight. We'll go on to reports. We have our fire chief with us tonight to give us the fire department's third quarter report. Welcome, chief.
Alrighty, the third quarter report for 2024. We'll do Tyrone Township first. We didn't have, there were 0 fires. We had 10 medicals. We had 2 service calls, 4 good intent calls, and 1 false alarm for a total of 17 incidents. And for Fenton Township, which includes the Tyrone Township calls altogether, we had 6 fire incidents. We had 59 medicals, 14 hazardous incidents, 26 service calls, 50 good intent calls, 12 false alarms, for a total of 167 calls for the third quarter of 2024. Also, we had a structure fire last night in the Torrey Road area of between Crane Road and I'm losing the name of my road here.
Golden Shores?
Golden Shores. Deputy Riggs responded. He arrived the same time as I did. I went inside, extinguished the fire with 2 extinguishers, and Deputy Riggs retrieved the German Shepherd that was trapped in the basement with the smoke. I had an area for him to get through to go down and unlock the door. Deputy Riggs is also a retired Pontiac firefighter. So he knew what he had to do, and without his assistance, we probably would have had a different turnout with that dog by the time our engine got on, which was 6 minutes to remove the smoke from the house. So having our deputies out here running calls with us is pretty beneficial. So we don't want them to go into the burning houses, but once I got it knocked down, he was able to get in there and did a good job. So I'd just like the board to hats off to our
them to go in the burning houses, but you're going to go into the burning houses.
I don't want them to go into the burning
Yeah,
house.
but you went into the burning house.
Yes, I did, because I had to put the fire out.
I just want to make sure I always understand what you're telling me.
So you guys hired me to do, to put out fires and keep everybody safe, so. Wound up being the toaster started the fire, so somehow the dog jumped on the counter, tripped the toaster, and caused the fire. The mother of the owner was going to let the dog out about 6:30 and was backed off by black smoke, heavy black smoke, when she opened the kitchen door from the garage into the kitchen. So it's good having our firefighters throughout the community to be able to get on quick. So it saved a lot of property. So
And the dog.
Great. And the dog.
and the dog, absolutely. That was the owner when he got home. That was his biggest thing, is his dog was okay. He didn't care about the house. He wanted his dog. So.
How much damage?
Good owner.
There was probably 100% smoke damage and probably about 25% damage in the kitchen, burnt the cabinets. Pretty good fire. So, toaster.
We can all learn from this.
Plug your toaster.
What's to learn?
Unplug your toaster.
Unplug your toaster if your dog's around.
I'm curious, how does a toaster start a fire?
So, probably the force of the dog getting up there and slapping his paws on it probably jammed it down. His biscuits were up on the counter. Big dog, German Shepherds are big dogs.
I'm just normally
So
close it down
the element in
about
the, unless they're the newer toasters where they have the heat element in there, where after so long they'll shut off. It got hot enough to melt the plastic of the face of the toaster, and then it melted and burnt into the bottom of the cabinets. And once it got the cabinets going, that's your fuel package, so on and so forth, and you have a fire. So
Any questions for the chief? Thank you, chief. Great job.
Christine, did you hear the whistle go off? I didn't either. I meant to check into that. Okay, I know the one at
Chat
Station
with
2.
you
went.
after the meeting, but
Okay.
yeah, I did not hear it, and I was home.
Okay. I'll look into it.
Thanks, chief. All right, next under reports is the ordinance enforcement third quarter report. I'm sure we've all reviewed the report in the packet. Are there any questions or comments from the board? All right, we're going to move to the next report, which is APM mosquito control. And this is the annual report. We have Ben from APM Mosquito Control here to give us the year-end report. Welcome, Ben.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here to talk about the mosquito season and some updates going on with APM. Ben Seago, General Manager. We had a pretty mild winter of 2023, which fired up a warm spring. Everything kind of got off the ground pretty quickly in May. We started spraying a little bit earlier this year. It's kind of becoming a theme. Season starting a little bit earlier and trying to run a little bit later into the early fall. Spring hatch in Fenton Township wasn't so bad. Our biggest issues came from Hurricane Beryl, believe it or not. Turned into a tropical storm system and kind of made its way right up to Michigan and parked on us for a day and a half there in July. And the area got about 4 inches of rain, and we get summer floodwater mosquitoes from that. So those are coming from your ditches and flooded yards. We basically have about 10 days to treat as much water as we can before you have adults from those rain events. So honestly, they were pretty bad. Mid-July until about middle of August. For about a month period, we had increased call volume, trap counts were up, we're spraying at increased rates all throughout the township for about a month period there in the middle of summer. Then we get into later August, we had a little bit of a cool spell towards the end of August, and September thankfully was really dry. And in years past, we've had wet August and September months, which will kind of transpired to a second hatch there in September. Thankfully this year we didn't see that. So pretty quiet end of the season for us. Majority of the field work was completed in July and August. We had 882 residents call the office this season. Most of them were just nuisance and party service requests, folks calling to have us come spray their property. Aerial larviciding was completed back in April on the 16th. And we treated 809 acres of floodplains on that day. Ground crews treated 339 standing water sites throughout the season with about 1,300 pounds of Vectovac G. 1,330 catch basins were treated in the township this season during April. We had 787 residential sites, homes that were treated by backpack applications this season. So that was definitely high from years past and something I want to talk about with our budget considerations towards the end of the report. But 20 adult mosquito pools were collected from Fenton Township and tested for West Nile virus, Triple E, and St. Louis encephalitis. All arbovirus activity in Fenton Township was negative for the season. If we ever have a positive pool, you guys will be notified. There's a protocol that the state that pretty much enacts. So that's always good. We did have some activity in some of the northern accounts, but quiet here. We sprayed almost 1,400 miles of roadways throughout the township this season. There are 6 routes, 99 off-roads, and 31 shut-off properties. Anybody that may call the office and feels like they may have been missed by the truck spraying at night, go ahead and forward those over to the office. To our office. We've got a nice new GIS software that it basically we can see everything the guys are doing at night, and we can answer for every property that may or may not have been hit or treated. And it's pretty black and white. It's just a yes or no, were we there or not. A lot of times folks are asleep when we're in there spraying at night. So, but if we're missing somebody, we can't fix a problem if we don't know about it. So go ahead and forward those over to us. And then, like I said, we completed 787 backpack applications this summer. There's 300 in our current proposal that we have budgeted. So that number, and I've spoken with Tom, I'm sure you guys are aware, the township's continuing to grow. More subdivisions, more people moving. It's probably great to see all the development, but it just drives more volume of work at the end of the day, more people calling to get their yards sprayed. So we did adjust over 300 of those backpack applications to spray miles. There's a way that we can kind of convert those and dampen the budget blow, if you will, because we're already quite a bit over budget, primarily from those backpack applications. So we're over double what we have budgeted. So we may want to consider in the future, I guess we can watch trends throughout the next few years where that number kind of lines up, but if we go to renew, we may want to entertain the idea of budgeting some more backpack applications. It's not that we can't do it, it's just I don't think it's fair to really kind of blow over the budget like that. People are calling, they want their yards sprayed, and it's kind of the easiest thing for us to do is go out and service them. So, and then yeah, we mapped over this past winter, over 400 standing water sites in the township are now mapped on Field Seeker. We used to have all pen and paper maps, and those worked great for years. And paper databases, we got with the times, if you will. Field Seeker is a Esri ArcGIS kind of mosquito software, and the guys now have tablets. They can go out in the field, they can see all the standing water sites. They're green if they've been treated, red if they haven't been treated. So that's been really, it's actually sped us up quite a bit too, so that's been great. It took a lot of initial legwork on the mapping side. You're basically going one by one all winter long. So all of that is available to you guys now as well if you want to confirm any of those sites have been treated or not. There's a history log that's available upon request. And then the drone project we've been working on kicked off last winter. A handful of us are licensed drone pilots now. We do have a drone. It's an agricultural style drone. Not sure how familiar some of you may be with those, but they've come a long way in just a few years really. The drone we're using, the ag guys use them to spread cover crop and fertilizer, so it spreads a granular material. It's a DJI T20, and it can carry about 55 pounds. So if we're at 4 to 5 pounds to the acre, now we're starting to talk about being able to treat bigger sites. Previous models really couldn't get that much payload up to make it make sense for us to go through all the hoops with the FAA. So that's what we're muddling through right now. Exemptions, it's over 55 pounds. You got to have a class 3 medical. It has to be registered through Oak City. We're kind of muddling through all that right now. I'm thinking we're going to have our final approval hopefully by Thanksgiving. So
Very cool.
just wanted you guys to know we're keeping up with some of the new technology. A lot of the guys are excited. And I think it may play a big factor in the future of treating some of those larger floodplains like we've used the fixed wing aircraft before. We'll continue to use that. But we may really see a time in 4 to 5 years when we can potentially tackle those floodplains with drones. So, but yeah, in the meantime, we'll continue muddling through FAA regs. So, any questions for me or from the board, Tom?
Or do you have any questions?
Yeah, you mentioned
Ben?
that there were some other areas that did have positive tests. Where were those?
We had a triple E case in Allgray City up in Aranac County. We had 2 West Niles in Allgray Township, which is also Aranac, and then we had a positive West Nile in Alabaster Township, which is Iosco. There was a few West Nile human cases reported in Burton, in the city of Burton. But as far as sample pools that APM accounts tested, we didn't have any in Genesee County or Isabella, Gladwin, Huron County even. We didn't have any up there. It was all Aranac, Iosco, so northeast side of the state. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
You referenced 300 barriers in the contract. I don't know what a barrier is. What are we talking about?
Just a guy goes around a property with a backpack. It's a harborage barrier application using a residual product. So he's spraying leaves and foliage around someone's home for residual control of mosquitoes. So
Are those all requested?
That's right. Yeah, that's the next question.
Yeah.
That's somebody calling and asking for that?
Right.
yep,
And the same thing is true for the 787 backpacks?
yeah, yep. Those are all. It's tricky. If they have a bigger lot, we're going to get in there with a truck. But a lot of these lots are just smaller and.
Yeah.
And we used to do them just for parties. We used to reserve, Chuck told me those were only for party and special event requests. So it's kind of, maybe we need to have that conversation, Tom, separately. And if we're going to limit residents to a few a year.
I think we typically tell people they can get no more than 3 a year.
Are a lot of these repeat?
I don't know.
No, and that's kind of why it pointed towards just the increase in population. I'm sure you guys have more demographics, but I looked for repeat callers. We're using a 30-day product.
Right.
Well, we
So-
also disseminate information a lot better than we used to in the past, our social media, things like that. So we're out there telling people. So, you know, those numbers are going to go up, not just from, you know, because really the houses haven't, went up that much to adjust for that type of, you know,
Okay.
backpack number of 700. But we do a lot better job of disseminating information to, you know, our residents through social media.
So a
So
lot more people know about it.
a lot more people know about it.
Yeah, and I think we need to consider, it's been nice to be able to call that out and get it for free.
Right.
But just doing the math on the deficit with these number of backpacks, $30, okay? That would cover the budget shortfall, even $50. You know, if you've got an event or a thing that's important enough to you, $30 or $50 is,
Right.
you know, because the truth of the matter is the entire township is paying for the people that are
Using,
calling.
right.
Yeah, and that's not the way it ought to be.
That's something-
In my view.
Yeah, no, that's something we should talk about. And, you know, people have a tendency when it's free to use it more
Yes.
often than they need.
Exactly.
And if the oil changes were free for your car, you'd get one every week.
Well,
Any
they give
other
me a
questions
cookie
for-
when I go, so.
He's
All
twice a
right,
week.
yeah. Any other board questions for Ben?
No.
Ben, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Great
guys.
job. I
Appreciate
didn't
it.
I didn't see a mosquito all summer, so
Yeah.
that's might a
Changed
slight
from last
exaggeration,
summer.
but
Thank
it
you.
was a good summer.
Good things about you guys, so
Yep.
keep up the good work.
They're definitely not out there today.
Oh, no. No. All right. Are there any committee reports to be made to the board this evening? All right. Hearing none, we'll move on to communications. We have none. Next business order is adoption of ordinances. This is rezoning number R24-006 Lonnie Ward, part of parcel 06-16-300-010, address of 4436 Ralston Road, Ag to R3, to be combined with existing R3 parcels, introduction in the first reading. Mike?
Yeah, so the best thing to do is probably turn around and look at the map that's on.
Yep,
You have
right
it
there.
in front of
Yep.
you too.
Yeah, I do too.
So what's being asked for is just a half acre on either side of two existing parcels on Ralston Road that are currently zoned R3. The half acres would be joined, so there'd be no new lots created, and it would allow the septic systems for those houses to be on the same lot as the houses. So no sewers being involved, no additional lots are being created. The lots are already R3, they just want to add the other half acre. That's the request. Planning Commission has reviewed it, found that was consistent with the master plan, and they have passed on a recommendation for approval.
Anything to add, Mr. Tucker?
What he says.
What he
You say it out loud, it's kind of a no-brainer.
We did have two people at the Planning Commission meeting ask questions. Once they realized it was just a half acre on either side, they were good. And that's been the extent of any comments we've received.
Thanks, Mike. All right, I'll now open the meeting for public comment. Tom, any written comments in the packet?
None.
All right. Is there anyone here present tonight that would like to address the board regarding the rezoning? Hearing none, is there anyone that's attending via Zoom tonight that would like to address the board on the rezoning? If so, just unmute. All right, hearing none, I will now close the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
The thing I'll say is, we talked about perhaps a moratorium on rezonings until we get the sanitary sewer situation rectified. I don't know if that has gone anywhere, or if there's some reason we shouldn't do that, but I just raise it again here. This particular proposal does not impact that. It wouldn't fall within the criteria that we were talking about impacting the sewer system. So I have zero problem with this at all, but I just wanted to raise that issue again in case we run into other issues with adjoining property or any other properties. This area of the township is pretty hot for development.
Right. But that, again, it's going to go through the process, and it would go through planning and probably
Right.
be,
And
at
part-
that point, you're going to say
And
no
we
at
can
this
shut it
point.
down at that point.
Correct.
That's
It
something
should
we
come to
can
the board.
do. But, you know, it might make it better known to people before they spend money. Of course, they can talk to the office as well. Staff can certainly tell them when they come in with the application. But, you know, just food for thought. I'm not on my soapbox for it at this point.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the board? All right, the second reading of the proposed ordinance will be conducted at our October 29th meeting.
Julia had her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Julie.
When you're talking about a moratorium for rezoning, should you possibly, and I don't know the legalities of it, but a moratorium in that area for land divisions?
Yeah.
Or no?
Yeah, it'd be anything that's going to increase the sewer capacity.
Okay,
So,
just
yeah.
make sure you get both of those when you do that.
Yeah. Because that is one thing. I don't know. Do you have that authority in your office to say no? Because we don't
I
have
don't
sewer?
know, I don't know. I've never had to deal with that, and I'm not sure that there is.
Might be.
We'll have to look at that.
It's an argument for putting a moratorium in place so we don't have to guess.
Why don't you, Julie, why don't you look into it? And then just report back to me, and then I can report back to the board.
Okay.
All right. Sorry about that, Julia, I didn't see you there.
Oh, that's right, I was gonna wait till the end, I'm not gonna.
All right, that leads me into the next business order, which is unfinished business. Just wanted to make a reminder that our next meeting is, due to the election, is going to be on Tuesday, October 29th. So if you need to make that change in your calendar, you should. Any questions? All right, next order of business is new business. This is public official compensation. What I would like to do is I'd like to begin by providing some historical context regarding the compensation of Fenton Township's elected and appointed officials. Those include the Township Board, the Planning Commission, and the ZBA. The proposal I'm presenting today stems from a broader discussion regarding the need to restore the position of Fenton Township Supervisor to a full-time status. For the past 4 years, I've served as your supervisor in what is essentially a full-time capacity, despite the role being compensated as part-time. The decision to reduce the supervisor's role from full-time to part-time was made by my predecessor more than 20 years ago, and that was largely due to the factors such as the recession and minimal township growth. However, as we all know, that has changed. In the last 4 years, Fenton Township has undertaken several large-scale infrastructure projects that are vital to our community's development and long-term success. Over the next 4 years, we will be completing a nearly $30 million water project, upgrading the bridge at US 23 and Thompson Road, and investing over $10 million in critical sewer upgrades and new lines. These projects represent a significant workload requiring diligent oversight and management. As part of my research into the restoration of the supervisor's full-time status, I also examined the compensation of other key officials within the township government. To my surprise, I discovered that the last time the other members of the township board received a pay increase was 1995. 30 years ago. Additionally, the Planning Commission and ZBA last received a per-meeting pay increase in 2015, almost a decade ago. In that time, the demands on the officials and the level of responsibility we bear for that well-being of the township have grown. Therefore, I am recommending that we align the salaries and per-meeting compensation of our board, our Planning Commission, and ZBA members with that of a similarly sized municipality. It is important to note that the increase I'm proposing is still less than what would have been appropriate if we simply adjusted for just inflation. Additionally, this recommendation aligns with the wage increases we have provided to our township employees under their union contract. I do want to be clear that this recommendation is not about self-interest. We as current board members are only temporary stewards of these roles, serving a finite term. The real consideration must be for those who will come after us, future board members, Planning Commission members, and ZBA officials. Ensuring fair, competitive compensation will help attract and retain qualified individuals to fill these important positions in years to come. As someone who has spent over 4 decades in business, I can confidently state that Fenton Township's elected officials, from the Township Board to the Planning Commission and ZBA, are some of the best and most dedicated public servants I have had the honor to work alongside. In making these recommendations, I ask the board to consider not just our present circumstances, but the future of this township and the people who will serve in these positions after us. This is not a decision to be taken lightly, nor considered as one that only benefits us personally. This decision is about securing the future of Fenton Township. It is about ensuring that those who come after us are equipped with the resources and support necessary to continue the important work of guiding our community. We must position ourselves as a township that values its leaders, its public servants, and its future, because the decisions we make today will echo through generations to come. I ask you all to look beyond the present and invest in the strength of tomorrow. Thank you for your time and consideration. Are there any questions? It's in the packet. Is there any questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I'd say something. I guess
Yes.
just, I've been disappointed with how few people are running for township board positions. In my mind, ideally we would have, you know, 8 people running for each of the 4 board, or for the 4 board seats. We'd have at least, you know, 2 candidates running for supervisor, 2 candidates running for clerk, and 2 candidates running for treasurer, and then we'd find out, you know, maybe the township loves us, but we don't want the elected officials to just remain here because we're the only ones who are willing to, you know, take the pay hit to, you know, not be out working a job or being with our families, instead be here. We want, you know, the people that the community actually wants to be here. So I think this is a good step forward in making it so it's not, people aren't taking on like a financial hit by being on the board.
Thank you. Well, I've had the pleasure of serving this township, both on the ZBA and the Planning Commission. And when I started to look into this, you know, if you think about it, someone sitting on the ZBA, let's say that there's 5 things on the agenda, and I've said this before, that is almost a half day, if not a full day, that you have to take off your job. You have to go to each property, look if it's a sightline variance or whatever it may be. And we're asking people that sit on that board to do that for $60. I think, you know, when I was there, I was probably spending half that amount just on gas driving around the township. So I think we have unfairly paid and compensated these people that are actually taking money out of their own pocket to serve this community. And when I said that this township has one of the best boards and some of the best people and the caring people that I've ever met. I mean, being in business for 4 decades, honestly, I have had thousands of employees over the years, over the decades, and this township should be proud of the people that sit here and the hard work they do.
Well, I'll follow up as a story. I'll be quick. I had a gentleman that was mad at me about something I did. I probably pulled a Bob Krug in front of him or something. But he said, I'm going to run against you because I know you're making several $100,000 a year. And I said, okay, run against me. And he says, you don't want to lose that? I said, if you check the record, I make $12,300 a year. He looked at me and he says, I don't want that sucky job. You know, we're here to serve the community. Good thing about the board as we sit in previous boards is we had the ability to agree to disagree and then go on to something else. And I think that's a key to a successful board.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
Well, I will, first of all, thank you for taking the time to outline the rationale for this. I think many of those points well, all of them I think are solid, logical, sound points. All of you know I struggle with this. I think all of us probably do. It's hard to vote for something that puts money in your pocket. But I will say this, my son was elected trustee in Tyrone Township 4 years ago, and what they pay in Tyrone Township, it's embarrassing as to what we're paying our trustees for the same job in a much more active, much more demanding environment. So 30 years is a long time, and the points you raised are valid points, and that's enough to get me over the hump, I think.
Well, I also want to give my hats off to Jack, because Jack, as our township attorney, has told us this since he's joined this board, and he's even made several phone calls over those years to say, hey, you've got to do something about this. And but anyway, I'll leave it at that. So thank you, Jack, for bringing it to my attention and making this whole process start to work. Anything else from the board? Hearing none. Okay, a motion is in order to approve compensation changes for elected and appointed officials to be effective October 16th, 2024 as presented.
So move.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
You ready, Tucker? Oh. Gopal,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Kotrick,
Yes.
I vote yes. Reed,
Yes.
Kessler,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Next, under new business, is appointment to Construction Code Fire Code Board. All right. Appointments to Construction Code Fire Code Board of Appeals. I'm sure we reviewed the memo in our packets. We have our zoning administrator here today. You want to come up and just give a brief?
Short, let's keep it short. The
Short.
the board has met like once in 10 years. We need to have active people on it, especially since we administer our own electrical, plumbing, and mechanical inspections. So made some calls, Chris Macklin and whoever is,
Lord Curtis.
Yep,
and Mr. Curtis.
Ward Curtis.
Responded that they would be interested. Mr. Curtis is already on there. Chris Macklin's done a little bit of everything in the township. Be great choices. Highly unlikely we'll ever meet, but let's get some people on there and keep everyone up to date.
All right, thanks, Mike. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order to reappoint Ward Curtis to the Fenton Township Construction Code Board of Appeals and Fenton Township's Fire Code Board of Appeals for the term ending September 30th, 2026.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Kessler,
Yes.
Gopal,
Yes.
I vote yes. Reed,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Kotrick,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right. Next, I need a motion in order to appoint Christopher Macklin to the Fenton Township Construction Code Board of Appeals and the Fenton Township Fire Code Board of Appeals for the term ending September 30th, 2026.
So moved.
Support,
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Gopal,
Yes.
Kessler,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Kotrick,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right. Next under new business, this is the proposed revisions to the Fenton Township Schedule of Fees. We reviewed the memo in our packet, and we have our zoning administrator. Mike, will you?
Yeah, so the first one is basically a disincentive to pull your permits. So what the fee schedule would be amended would, if you are doing activities that require a permit and don't pull a permit, your fee would be double. For residential and commercial construction permits, that would be minimum of 500. For the trades, it'd just be double. So again, we're finding people doing work in their basements, putting on decks. We just recently had a zoning board variance for a deck that had to be replaced because it fell in and it was built without a permit. So if we're able to encourage people to pull permits ahead of time, like they're supposed to, let's do that. The second amendment to the fee schedule is for short-term rentals. It would be a permit fee of $750. Now, that would be for approved short-term rentals. If a special use permit is required, they still have to pay the special use permit fee for the one time, and then the short-term rental would be the annual fee associated with it. That would be covering our administrative costs. You know, we have our compliance software, staff time, and inspections for that. So the goal is start at $750. We'll see how things work, and we'll review the whole thing with you guys probably next October, see how things are going, and those are the recommendations.
$750 per year?
Yes.
It helps.
The special
offset
use
some
permit would be
Oh,
one
no,
time.
I'm fine.
Yes.
I just want to clarify that it's per year.
Yes.
So that we're all clear, because, yeah, all right.
All I would like to say is that we don't like charging, but these fees really just offset the cost that the township has. And you have, I think it's a health, safety, and welfare issue. If somebody comes in, we find out, you know, after they put the pool in, and we find out they didn't have the fence the right height or whatever. So to me, it is a health, safety, and welfare. And if we can, you know, encourage people not to pull a permit by doing what is being recommended, I support it. Any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order to adopt the revised Fenton Township Schedule of Fees effective October 16th, 2024 as presented.
So move.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Lorraine,
Yes.
Cartwright,
Yes.
Kessler,
Yes.
Gopel,
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
I vote yes. Reed,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, thanks, Bob. Moving on, the next business order is board comment. Is there anyone on the board who has additional comments or concerns?
Yes, and I apologize, the meeting was going well. I've been thinking about this for quite some time. You can hoot on me later if you'd like, but I would like the board to consider a building moratorium. And the issues I bring up are our infrastructure, or basically our whole structure. Roads, sewer, water, schools, fire protection, police protection, and traffic impact. According to what I could come up with, we have approved approximately 90 apartment units and 500 homes. These buildings will increase traffic by approximately 1,180 more vehicles on our roads. And following the conversation on police would have at least us hiring 3 to 4 more deputies, cost in excess of $200,000 a year. Fire will need to build another station and increase firefighters by, and the chief can correct me if I'm wrong, you'll need to increase firefighters by 15 to 20 people and a couple of deputy chiefs. Our chief does a fantastic job, but he can't walk on water yet. I guesstimated it would cost us about $1 million. Sewers need expanded service and repair, depends on the number of homes contracted. Schools will be hit with an influx of approximately 1,000 new students, which will cause them, and they are considering it, a new school. We are currently working in all of these issues, but it will still take time and money for success in these areas. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Bob. Any questions or comments for Bob? Everyone?
I actually have just a question probably for Tom. Are there consultants, I know at different levels of things that we've done, usually in connection with bonds and whatever, we get studies that talk about those kinds of things. Is there anybody that does a kind of a comprehensive infrastructure analysis that you're aware of? That's something we could,
Certainly look into it.
you've never heard of it before? I mean, there's a lot of things that he identified there, and you got to have them all working right to make the community work right. So I get the sentiment. The flip side of the coin is by adding residents, you add pocketbooks to pay for it too, and that's the concept at least, is that as you grow, that there's enough revenue to generate the funds to do the improvements but the problem is obviously that always lags the growth.
Well, one of the reasons I wrote, and I experienced today, I was trying to come north on Torrey Road. The expressway was shut down from south of Owen Road to one lane, and it took me probably 3 times as long to make the same trip. And, we've discussed capacity, so it's, in my mind, and I'm open for correction. In my mind, the moratorium could be a very simplistic way to give us time to do the great things we're doing as we talk about it, so.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
What would be the next step in that, Bob?
I'll be honest with you,
Yeah.
I wished I knew.
Okay.
I would hope that if the board was interested,
I'm interested.
we could go to, like Scott, Ryan, Mike, and get real numbers. You know, like I say, I went and figured out how many people. I figured if you got 500 homes and 90 apartments, that's going to be 1,000 cars. Very few people have one car anymore.
Jack, is there an issue with that?
Well, if you do a moratorium, you can't just stop everything. You have to have a purpose. So you do a moratorium
Yeah?
while you're installing the road or a water line or something, but it has to be for a purpose with an
Wouldn't
ended
infrastructure,
site.
taxation?
Well, I know, but how does that get resolved then? I mean,
Oh,
if you
man,
put the
you're
moratorium, you have to have some end resolution.
Well, I think, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I feel the township's doing that. I do that every day. I meet with our engineers when there's a project that's going on. If someone was to come to Silver Lake Road and say, I want to put a development in, or I want to do this, well, it would go through the planning. You know, Mike and I have this conversation all the time. I have it with our engineers all the time. Every step that this township's making right now is methodical. It's not just, we're just going to go build 700 homes. That's not what's happening here. I've sat with the chief all the time. If the chief said to me, hey, you've got another 150 homes coming, Vince, I need 7 more, he would come to me. Would you not, chief? None of that's happening. Everything that we're doing is very methodical. We're not adding 900 homes in a 1-year period where we don't have the streets, we don't have the sewer. We talked, today in a special meeting, we are planning for a decade out. So all the things you're talking about sitting in my chair, I do that every day. I'm not an engineer, but I talk to my engineers and I say, if we do this, what are we going to need? So that process works every day.
Well, and I'm not saying it doesn't. You know, we had a very good special meeting tonight. And I didn't know what the meeting was about when I wrote this. It was, and we're already checking roads, water, sewers,
Expressways.
expressways.
Everything.
You know, I know the school wants a new school. I don't know, and I'm speaking out of term, but on the fire or police protection, I think there's times when there's only one officer on duty. I personally think that's unsafe for that officer. But it's things like this, and I did not talk to Jack. I have no idea what the law says, but we are addressing these concerns. I was trying to create, if we could do it, a period of respite where we can do it without being under the gun. In my mind, I started out with 10 years, then went to 5 years, and now I'm thinking 2 to 3 years to get us the opportunity to complete the great projects we have going forward. So it was just a thought.
One thing I'll say is I would never encourage us to implement a moratorium until we had the data that justify it. So I think we
The
gotta
data will
go.
funnel into
You
us.
gotta go about it the other direction. And Vince is correct, a lot of this stuff is looked at, but I will say at the planning commission level, I have no idea what the school capacity is like. Until you said they're wanting a new school, that's the first time I've heard that. And that's, something that we need to be looking at. Maybe they want more houses because they want a new school. I don't know, but with those kind of dialogue, that's not happening with me. Now,
It's happening with me.
Maybe with you?
It
Okay.
is. I've talked to Julie, the
Yeah.
superintendent, and again, the developments that we currently have right now are not even going to be going to the Lake Fenton schools. They're going to be going to Linden schools.
Okay.
So, I guess being in business, I look at this every day. I mean, I don't just, you know, I mean, I talk to Mike what's on the agenda in the planning commission, so I know that. So I guess, at least in this position, I would expect, you would expect me to look at that. And do we need to talk, you know, maybe bring somebody in on a global, but to just put a township in a moratorium, a building moratorium when we don't need it? I truly believe that we are very methodical in what we're doing right now. The moves that we're making, I think are right on track, and I think that if I have a conversation with Melissa, she's certainly going to say, if you put 150 homes here, we're going to have to look at traffic, we're going to have to do this, the county, that's all going to be done. Just rest assured, it will be done.
I agree with what you're saying. Like you say, I've thought about this for a couple of months, and I finally said, write it down and take it to the board, so.
Okay, no problem. I mean, I think we all want controlled growth. I certainly don't, you know, I want growth, but.
Yeah, you can't shut the door behind you, and there's a lot of people that want to do that. I'm here now.
I don't want anybody else here.
You know, and I understand the appeal of that. I get it, but all of us, you know, whenever we got here, you know, if that conversation had happened a year before we got here, you know, that's the situation. And I will tell you, you lose those lawsuits. You know, they're coming. You can't tell people they can't develop their property, but can you constrain it to, you know, controlled growth, you know, within the confines of the infrastructure? I think you can do that, but you can't do it until you know if you have a limitation, what the limitation is, and how and when you're going to go about resolving it.
And again, not to speak to it again, but that was part of the planning. I mean, when we looked at the master plan, I mean, we know what's going to be built. We had put the sewer in, we put the water in. So those pieces of the puzzle are being put in a timely fashion to make sure that we don't have 16 hotels west of the expressway because we don't have the infrastructure. We're never going to do that. There is a process, and these processes take a long time. Nobody's going to invest in our township knowing that there's not the infrastructure to do it. Nobody's going to build a hotel anywhere unless they know that they have the roads, the expressway access, and everything else. So the process works, and I think we're doing a really, as a township, not me, I think the township, the planning commission, the ZBA, they do a really good job. And if you take a look at our master plan and what we want to do with it, we're 2 or 3 or 5 years ahead with our infrastructure with what we're doing now. I don't think, you know, I know we've had conversations about Silver Lake Road. Well, we don't want any commercial there because we don't have the traffic or we don't have the roads for it. Nobody's probably going to go in there. I don't think they'll get through planning unless there's something to do with, you know, how the ingress and egress getting into that property would be for commercial. So I think that the process is working. I really do. And I think it works very well. I think we've got a well-tuned machine here. And again, it's not I understand your concern.
No, I'm not.
But I think that, and it's good that we all talked about it, but I think that I would hope that the experts like Mike, Melissa, the county that I talked to, and I talked to Jeff, right? I mean, they are going to say, listen, you've got an issue. And we would stop it in its tracks. And they'd probably stop at his level right there at the planning commission.
Yeah, and look, I think you touched on the last part. He says, and the county, you know, especially for like the road commission. We know that there are suboptimal locations in the township. But when you look at the objective, you know, levels of service, they don't meet the criteria for national standards to do improvements. But we're watching them. And we're talking with the road commission, and things are getting put on their, you know, long range, short range, and medium range plans, right? For, you know, road improvements on Owen and Lobdell, you know, in that area of the township, you know, looking at potential roundabouts and other locations. So those conversations are happening. Those studies are being done. I guess we could probably do a better job of keeping you guys informed about the discussions we have with the county. But, you know, we, if not weekly, it's, you know, twice a month, we're talking about different projects, you know, developments that are going on, things that someone's whispering about so that we can stay ahead of things. You know, if you remember when Love's tried to come in, you know, we did the traffic study and it said, the infrastructure's not available there. Right, and so it was denied. But that led on to, all right, well, what does need to happen there? And Vince took that ball and ran with it, right? And now we're getting improvements that have been needed for 20 years on that intersect, or the interchange there, so you can actually see when you're trying to turn onto Thompson Road. So, you know, these things are happening, and I guess, you know, we probably take some of this for granted, that we talk and you know, go over every day. You know, we talked about the sewer projects, you know, the long range and short range, you know, infrastructure that needed to handle the different parts of the township. So, if anything, we probably should work on getting that information to you guys, but we are doing it.
Mike makes a great point, and thank you, Mike, for saying that, because I guess I take it for granted because I'm in the meetings. So, you know, when we started talking about Thompson Road and the bridge 2.5 years ago, I was already talking to the road commission about putting a roundabout at the end of Fenton Road. Well, I really haven't even talked to the board about it because there's no need right now. But I'm looking for money for 3 years down the road. So those meetings are happening all the time, like Mike said. We're looking out a long ways.
Well, and I apologize if I have stepped on anybody's toes.
Oh, not at all.
My thoughts was probably out of ignorance, and I would like us to have an opportunity to set with, I mean, we get the annual reports, but you still, in my mind, don't get what they really want. Yeah, they're reporting on what they've got, what they're doing, and it was just it seemed time to bring it up.
Yeah, I'd say two things. The first is, I feel like a moratorium is kind of a tool for an emergency, and I feel like that's kind of the wrong tool here, because I don't think there's really an emergency. I think maybe we have conflicts over how much growth we want, or whether we want it to be slower, and I feel really those have to be debated by the board, and it has to go into the master plan process. And I realized we just did that, so it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
But I don't think really a moratorium is the tool, and that's also why I know I've kind of said this a couple times now, but I was shocked that we've had people pretty upset about some elements of the master plan and development being too fast, and I would have thought we would have had several people running to try to slow the rate of growth in the township, but we didn't. So I guess I'm hoping actually the raises will eventually kind of help with that in the long run. But I think it's sort of something you have to debate and change, but I don't think we want a moratorium. It's like an emergency hard stop on construction right away. And then the other thing I just want to mention, this is sort of unrelated, but it's kind of related. I've been on the Genesee County Metro Alliance going up there. So if someone's going to have to do that when I'm not doing it anymore. I think whoever it is should probably be a little bit better tied in to the township. I've been busy just going to the meetings, but I haven't always stayed, in close contact with, I don't know if Tom's the person I should have been talking to more. I just feel like I should have been talking more to the township about what's going on at the Metro Alliance.
On that board, when we do that,
Yeah.
Kate, not to interrupt you, but when we always talk about board comment, is there anything else?
Yeah.
Or meeting, feel free
Yeah, and
to
that's
always
talking
do
to
it.
the whole board, but some of the things are maybe not things I need to talk to the whole board about.
Oh,
but,
okay, I got you.
Yeah, so anyways, I just wanted to mention that before
Okay,
I have a meeting for that tomorrow. But
all right.
but obviously that ties into the overall like roads being developed, and like I knew about that construction project that it was going to be happening, so I was not surprised when I got on the road, and it took longer to get here today.
You didn't look at our social media.
No, I wasn't. I knew about
It was posted.
Oh no, I knew about it from our social media. I knew about it before our social media. I was not at all surprised that I was getting on the highway and there was one lane. I was aware of that, but
Well, I think you bring up a good point. Maybe
Well,
what we
but-
should do is, on a quarterly basis, we could meet as a board, go over the things that are, maybe, I'm just gonna use me. I think that, if we start getting development on Thompson Road, especially on the west side, that we're gonna need a roundabout, let's say at Fenton and Thompson Road.
Yep.
I'm already looking at that. and trying to find money to do that.
I
So we're
know
having
that.
them, but the
That's-
rest of the board doesn't. So my point is, I think you have brought up a good point, that maybe what we should do is have,
Maybe bring
quarterly
those
reports.
concerns to the
I
board.
That would be more
Visualize.
in depth.
I visualize some of the things and I'll shut up after I make this simplistic statement. It's like, congratulations, Bob. You just got 200 chickens. But you better hurry and build a chicken coop.
Can't have chickens in the township.
Depends on where you want to go, Mark.
There's chickens all over the township.
God, thanks, Mark.
Got you out of that. All right, any other board comment? All right, next business order is public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. Is there anyone here, well, I'm going to open the meeting up for public comment on agenda items. Is there anybody here that would like to address the board on an agenda or non-agenda item? Yes, Julia, our assessor.
Oh, come
Come up to the front.
We want to get you on
Sure you
TV.
do.
Well, this is hitting something that you just said about the moratorium and all that kind of stuff. And does anybody know, maybe Rob or Tom, what your kid's graduating class was from Lake Fenton? How many students?
Number of kids? I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to ask them.
Yeah, and I don't know when Courtney graduated either. How many? I think it was 127. I think they were all at my house.
Well, I kind of did a quick little thing, and I'm estimating about 180, okay, for a graduating class.
For
When
this
I,
year?
pardon me?
Or was it this year?
Any year, I mean,
Or
in
any-
the past few years. I graduated almost over 40 years ago,
Woo.
and the graduating class was 124. So if you break that down, if it's about 180, that's only 60 more students. So that's 2 classrooms in 40 years for a school. Now, lots to that when you're talking about the schools, and if anybody knows me, this is one of my pet peeves, is school of choice.
Right.
School of choice brings in kids, and I love it, okay? If they want a better education. But what we're talking about here as a township is that's more infrastructure, it's more cars on our roads when we're talking about not only building other houses, but school of choice has a little bit to play with that too. And our taxpayers flip the bill for that. So that's something that the schools maybe need to take another look at as well for supporting some of our infrastructure for those things.
One of
And I
the
don't know
hottest
what
political topics of the day is school of choice on
I
both
know.
sides. I've listened to
Yeah.
both sides, so we don't want to get, do we want to get down that road today? I don't think so.
No, we don't, but that's another avenue when we're talking about the school situation. Maybe the schools need to look at what school of choice has done for their schools instead of building new schools and putting it all on the taxpayers that live in that community. So they may want
That's a
to look
question
at a
for
little
Julie.
bit for that, so.
Julia. All right. Anyone else that's attending that would like to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items? Hearing none, we will open it up to those that have joined us tonight via Zoom. Is there anyone that is joined us via Zoom that would like to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items? If so, unmute. All right. No one on Zoom? All right. I guess we're done. It is now 7:35, I guess. It's 7:35 p.m. If there's nothing else, I say good night, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Record.
Good job.